Our breath can liberate us. When we need to call upon love, we can access our breath to help us find it. It is always there for us. When we breathe deeply, we can focus on manifesting the love we want to share with others in whatever moment we are in. But we must practice. So this month, we will practice at the beginning of each worship service. We will take a few deep breaths together, and then we will sing our opening hymn. As you're breathing, remember to conjure up that desire for love to show up within you, and then dedicate yourself to being loving. Trust that love will show you the way. So let's start with one big breath. Are you ready? In and out through your mouth. And again, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And finding the love, breathe in one more time. Hold it, and out through your mouth. And let us sing our hymn 1009, Meditation on Breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe in. I'm breathing peace, I'm breathing peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Heather Norby, and I am the Spiritual Life Director for this fabulous congregation. I use the pronouns she and her. My opening words were written in 1894 by James Villa Blake. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I chose those words because they were written in 1894 and because they illustrate how long covenant has been at the core of our Unitarian Universalist faith, and how long love has been the spirit of our Unitarian and Universalist faith. You will see on the walls, I put up the proposed Article 2 values, value statements, and covenant statements. These are, some say they're replacing our 8 principles. I would say they have built on how we have used our principles, how we have lived into our principles, how we have learned from our principles since 1985. Now, they're not for sure going to happen yet. There's a vote happening in June in which every congregation will have the opportunity to vote on whether or not we want for Article 2 to change. And so I put these up here, and also Tim and I made this poster as a visual to help you all understand the changes and so that we can learn from them together. So these, they don't look great, but they're a learning tool right now, and we will use them in future town halls, which there is one at the end of the month, so please come, in worship services in which we dive into this together. So, thank you. Our mission at UUCL is love plus connection equals transformation. So I call you into this opportunity for connection as I read some of our announcements and ways to be together. Game night is this Wednesday. Adam, do you have a game?
Yeah, we're going to do a forest shuffle.
Forest shuffle.
Any games you want to bring.
Plus any game that you might want to bring. That's this week, this Wednesday at 6:30 here in our sanctuary. Happy MLK weekend. It's a 3-day weekend, but the Lakeland's Martin Luther King Parade isn't until next Saturday, which is the January 20th, and it's at 1 p.m. We have been marching in this parade for years, and so we will continue that tradition. Dorothy's going to go to the meeting this week to get more information, but generally we meet on site at about noon, and then we march together for the parade. It's simple. So she has a sign-up sheet, so after the service, please see Dorothy and sign up and let her know that you're going to come to the parade, and if you need a yellow t-shirt, also let her know, because I think we did find the t-shirt, so okay. So you can get one if you don't have one. Dorothy also has a sign-up sheet for a photo directory. We're going to make our own photo directory, so if you want to be in the photo directory, please also see Dorothy to sign up for that. Dorothy, are you doing anything else? Okay.
Still doing auction stuff.
Yeah. Adam has a few announcements. Would you like to tell us about your fundraisers?
More of the fundraisers.
Fun.
Fundraisers. Again, we've gotten a really good group, and I appreciate all y'all come out to support the church doing the theater stuff. And we got another trip out to the Fantastics. I'll tell you more about that this afternoon. And of course, we got Publix is doing their fundraiser again for the frozen food. So if you buy frozen food, you get a receipt. Stick it in the black box by the coffee, and then we get $10 from Publix that we can give to our Social Justice Committee for their projects to help the unhoused. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Yes.
So on the topic of fundraisers, at the service auction, I had made arrangements for us to do a tour of the L.B. Brown House in Bartow, and I still can offer tickets for that if anybody's interested. It'll be Saturday the 27th.
Okay, thank you, Gal. Great. I would like to thank Petra for donating these beautiful flowers to us today. And she invites all of you to come up after the service to take one or a few of them home with you so that they can be enjoyed for a few more days. Do you want to be more involved in serving this congregation and living into your call to bring more love to the world? Yes, good. Please see me to find out the many ways that you can help. Or see a board member. All right. Well, let us create sacred space by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith. I invite the other board members and Right Relations team to come up and read the chalice lighting words with me.
This is The Flames of Love by Reverend Kimmy Floyd Reich. We light the flame of commitment to stand with and work to create change until all know they are beloved.
We light the flame of survival, grateful for our lives, remembering in love those lost along the road.
We light the flame of change, committing to members is committing to recenter towards love in hearts, in minds, in our world.
We light the flame of hope, loving each other, building community, even when it is uncomfortable.
We light the flame of knowledge, following the path of justice, justice that is love embodied.
We light this flame of radical love to speak out for those who have been silenced.
Those who have been rejected for who they love.
Those who have been persecuted for who they are.
Those who have been bullied for daring to be bold.
Those who have been othered and forced into the margins.
Those who have been lonely, those who have been hurt, those who are still hurting.
We light this flame as a people who will change the world. We are committed. We are survivors. We will change the world until no one lives without hope, until no one lives without justice.
We light this flame in the pledge that in love, with love, and through love, all things are possible.
Thank you. We have a chalice lighter. Pedro will do the honor of lighting our chalice. And let us sing and sign Spirit of Life, hymn number 123. Melissa will lead us in our message for all ages. Eventually. Good morning, Dakota. Good morning, Presley. Good morning, Bella. Oh, good morning, Violet.
All right. Me. All right. So we've been talking about covenant. Has Heather talked about it? And we're going to have a story about that. So first we want to think about something. Think about, you remember the first time you went to a class or started a new school, how that felt? Usually, we always start with questions. It's a little unnerving, right? Who's going to be here? Where am I supposed to sit? Presley's favorite question, when do we get to eat? Right? You always want to know that. Where's the bathroom? And of course, we always want to know, when can we go outside? In a class, there's a teacher that shows us these things and how things work, and she's going to tell us the rules. When we know what we're supposed to do, what we're allowed to do, it's much more comfortable, right? But sometimes there's no teacher, like when we go on the playground. When it's just playtime, sometimes we make up our own games and we make up our own rules. Like when we play tag, we might decide whoever's it has to count to 10. Or maybe they have to count to 5. Or maybe there's no counting and we all just run around like crazy people. But it can be a lot of fun to make up your own rules, right, to your own game. Do you guys ever do that? Make up games with your friends? Or even a game you like kind of know and you just figure out how you're going to play it today. You get to make it however you like. That's what makes it fun. But it's only a good game if everybody agrees on the rules. So what if you're playing tag and you say the stairs are base, but another person says there's no base? Then it's confusing and we don't know how to play, right? So there's lots of different ways to play a game, but if it's going to be fun for everybody, everybody has to agree on what the rules are. Somehow, after discussing and changing and arguing and compromising, everybody agrees on the rules. But you might not like what somebody else wants it to be, and they might not like all your ideas. So that's where we have to work things out together. We have to talk, we change, we compromise. And then finally, everyone promises to each other to follow the rules. And we don't have to say the words, I promise, but we're making that agreement. We say, okay, these are the rules. So we're making the agreement, we're making this promise to each other, and no cheating, that's not a fun game. And then we can play together. So we agree to follow the rules. When we do that, we're making a covenant together. That's what that is agreeing that this is how we're going to be together. What we're going to do and how we're going to behave. I like to call it how we're going to be together. We need a covenant to have fun playing a game or doing work together. It's kind of the same thing. We come together, we want to get something done, so we have an agreement about how we're going to be together. The UU covenant was made about 60 years ago when I was a little bitty kid. Back then, there weren't any Unitarian Universalists. There were Unitarians and there were Universalists. There were two different religions, different names, different buildings, different songs, different rules. But the Unitarians and the Universalists had a lot in common. Their important ideas, what they wanted to do in the world, were the same. So, just like kids on a playground, they had different rules, but they wanted to play the same game. So in 1960, that's before I was born, just a little bit, they knew they had to figure out new rules that all the Unitarians and the Universalists would agree to follow. And it took almost a year of discussing and changing and arguing and compromising for months and months. Then the Unitarians and Universalists from hundreds of different churches all came to 6 principles they could agree on. That's like 6 rules, 6 basic agreements. And it's true that one person might not have liked another person's ideas or rules all that much, and maybe that person didn't like all of their ideas that much, but they agreed to follow them anyway because they knew they both got a lot out of it when they worked together, and they got to play together. They compromised, and then they covenanted. They decided to play the same game. And then 25 years later, in 1985, they added one more to make it 7. You guys have heard of our 7 principles. I know you even had to write them out, didn't you? A long time ago, writing practice. I was very surprised right after they started. I brought in the kiddie words, and he's like, oh, yeah. And he had to have practiced writing the long versions. Put me in my place. This boy doesn't need kiddie versions. But I'm going to read them to us anyway. These are the children's versions of the 7 principles. Each person is important. You know that one. Be kind in all you do. We're free to learn together. We search for what is true. All people need a voice, build a fair and peaceful world, and we care for Earth's lifeboat. What's another way of saying Earth's lifeboat? Remember? The interconnected web of which we are a part. Pretty soon, we're going to make our own covenant in RE. We'll work out how we want to act when we're together. And it may take some compromises, but when we promise to each other to follow the rules we make, we're covenanting with each other, just like making up games on a playground, just like the Unitarians and Universalists did 50 years ago. Thing is messed up. But when we do it, it's not going to be the whole arguing and negotiating and compromising. When we make a covenant here, and it's the same for our big congregation most of the time. When we make a covenant, we all put out our ideas, and we find gentle, fun ways to work together and come up with ideas and put things the way that works for all of us. So it's a happy way to agree to be together. That's the end of our story today. So we're going to go over to RE, and we're going to make some signs today for the Martin Luther King Parade next week. So we hope everybody gets to come walk with us. I hope you guys get to come.
While we sit and sing and listen to the morning's message together, the threads of love are woven deeper into the fabric of our lives, raising our awareness of our life's joys and sorrows and pulling us towards truth and meaning. In our Joys and Sorrows book, you are able to write any significant joy or sorrow occurring in your life that you would like for the congregation to know. It sits on the table at the entrance of the sanctuary before the service, and I read from it before we take the time to participate in our weekly ritual of placing pebbles in the bowl. Joy today from Joshua. He says, I walk into this place and feel peace and joy. And a sorrow from Jen and Sage. They are watching their cat slowly pass to the Rainbow Bridge. Sorry. We invite you now to come forward and place a colored stone representing your joys, concerns, and sorrows into the water. Let the many colors of our joys and sorrows mingle together, symbolizing the great adventure of our lives as we let our covenants guide us toward truth and meaning in this infinite universe. You may come forward. That Love Made by Reverend Amanda Pape. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love that the founders felt when they planned out these walls and raised these beams above us. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of all who have worshiped here, those who have celebrated and grieved here, the babies dedicated, couples married, and family members mourned here. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of our children as they learn and laugh together, and our youth as they grow into their own sense of purpose and meaning. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of the staff who have served it, full of their hopes for this congregation, their hard work, and their acts of dedication. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of the choir, the love made so clear in the voices lifted here on Sunday morning. This is the home that love made. It is full of our love, the love of this community, despite our differences and our disagreements, the love that holds us together as a people. This is the home that love made. Can you feel it? May the love be with us always. Amen.
Tucked back in this friendly neighborhood next to the tall pines, we come together to the home that love creates. This love is expressed with our time, talent, and treasure so that our home may flourish. So in this moment, we will take up an offering that will sustain and transform this life-giving community.
The introduction to the newly proposed Article 2 Value and Covenant Statement reads, "As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant, congregation to congregation and through our association, to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love." Perhaps you are saying to yourself, that sounds great. I can get behind that. But what exactly does love look like? How exactly do we hold each other accountable? What is a spiritual discipline of love anyway? The answer is covenant. Religion means to be bound together. Many faiths are bound together by beliefs, creeds, and doctrines. Unitarian Universalists are bound together by covenants, the promises we make about how we want to live, to behave, to be together in this world. Covenants express our aspirations. Writing covenants together and holding ourselves to them is to practice the spiritual discipline of a love that liberates each one of us. This is no easy task, of course, and that is why we have a right relations team in our congregation. That is why your right relations team and your board members have spent some hours this past fall in a training about sustaining a healthy congregation. This sort of work is just as important as the social justice work we do out in the world. In fact, it enhances that too. This is faithful work. It is work that your leadership has felt inspired to engage in, and today we want to share that inspiration with all of you. Ken Schmidt will begin.
Okay, I'm Ken Schmidt, along with Jerry Marshall, who is now with the with the children in RE, are your right relations team. You might be wondering, what is a right relations team? What do they do, and why do we have one? Our congregation is a covenantal congregation rather than a creedal congregation. We have a covenant of how we interact with each other. Very briefly, our covenant says that we will treat each other with kindness, respect, civility, harmoniously, and in a caring way, as well as with an open mind. The right relations team helps when we find difficulty in following our covenant in our conversations. We will support individuals that need assistance with communication skills and learning opportunities, and model and coach communication that will lead us from conflict and defensiveness toward mutual understanding and resolution. We will also model deep listening and the restorative process. Today, we will reflect on what we learned about covenant in our training. Not only Jerry and I attended the 3-month-long UUA training class on right relations, most of your board also attended, including our spiritual life director, Heather Norby, our board chair, Ken Wechter, Melissa Marshall, Helen Diggus, Mary St. Denis, Faisal Decor, and Justin Neal.
Thank you, Ken. It's an honor to have you and Jerry on our right relations team. So we thank you for your good work. Let us find inspiration now in our hymn number 318, which calls us together to understand a higher truth and purpose for our lives, to pledge ourselves to covenant, to work together to bring a liberating love into the world. Hymn number 318, We Would Be One. Now I know that most of you don't use the hymnals. We went the way of the slide. So I asked the Right Relations team and the board these questions to try to get them to reflect and inspire all of you. I asked, should we as a congregation use covenant? What more do we need to do? How will it help shape our future? How will covenant help strengthen our relationships and build our community? What vision does each Right Relations have for UUCL? How does covenant get us there? And so they reflected on these questions and they looked back at what they learned. And we have some offerings of that learning and that today. And Ken will.
Okay, having a covenant is important to UUism because each congregation is a religious community. Religious communities act differently than the secular world, where a law is broken and there is punishment. In our religious community, we need to be able to restore relationships to have a healthy congregation. Our covenant, as are most congregations' covenants, deal with how we interact with each other. We should use it in our congregation whenever we feel feelings are hurt and because someone said something or did something unintentionally or intentionally. The objective should be to restore the relationship to what is described in our covenant, so we can either agree or disagree without hurt feelings. The objective of a disagreement within our covenant is not to determine who is right or wrong, but to restore the relationship between disagreeing members. Having a covenant and implementing the relationships that it describes will help us to learn how to agree and disagree without hurting each other's feelings. If we implement the intention of our covenant, we will help reduce conflict. Others who are seeking the UU path will be better able to find us attractive rather than finding us in conflict where they think they don't want anything to do with us because we have conflict. In the coming months, I hope we can practice modeling communications to make communication parameters in our covenant into a habit. This could be a future Sunday sermons or congregational meetings set aside for that practice.
Thank you, Ken. Unitarianism and Universalism both arose out of opposition to a Calvinist theology. Calvinist doctrine proclaims that we are irredeemable and depraved until and unless we are saved by God's grace. But what the founders of our theology said was, no, that's not true. Every one of us is loved, and that love can save all of us. It can liberate us. Every one of us has inherent worth and dignity. We all have the capacity to be good and to make good choices. But the thing is, even if we as Unitarian Universalists say that we believe that, do we actually live by those beliefs? American culture was very much shaped by Calvinist beliefs, and we have to deliberately work against perfectionism and the belief that if we mess up, we are not worthy, or that we should feel shame, and that we are no good. When someone else messes up or hurts you, you might jump to shaming, and that person will become defensive, and the conflict will grow. It is difficult work to actually live into our shared values when they are so countercultural. It is hard to approach ourselves with a love that forgives, that understands, that helps us to be accountable without shame and helps us to grow as a person. That's why covenant is so important to us. It helps to manifest a liberating love, one that breaks the chains of shame that hold us back from a more joyful and peaceful world, So let's stop acting like Calvinists and start acting like Unitarian Universalists. Yeah. Understanding what our shared values and principles are actually supposed to look like in the world is the work of covenant. It is the work of our faith. It is the spiritual practice of love. So I handed out to all of you, or somebody handed out to all of you, hopefully, our congregational covenant. Let us read that together now. If you have one, you can share. If you don't, is it on the screen? No. You can share. Or, yes. Oh, there it is. Yay, thank you, Jason. We, the people of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lakeland, in our effort to promote the true spirit of our guiding principles, hereby commit our lives and resources with the following covenants. I will, with patience and understanding, treat all others with kindness and respect. I will be sensitive to the needs of others, treat them with civility, and honor their confidentiality. I will promote a harmonious spirit and a truly welcoming congregation by my personal, caring, and positive attitude. I will promote democracy by speaking with candor, respecting the right to dissent, seeking consensus, and honoring the will of the majority. I will seek to possess an open mind and a respect for views different from my own. I will support our congregation by volunteering my time and fulfilling my commitments.
Did you notice something that each of those covenant lines have in common? A lot of churches have creeds that talk about what they believe, but because we're Unitarian Universalists, we have a covenant, and those guiding principles aren't talking about what we believe, what we should believe, or what we expect others to believe. Instead, they're all about how we choose to relate to each other. So a covenant is a mutual agreement that we all share. And wound through those words is the agreement to respect each other, to be kind, and to care for one another. And we all have good intentions, and we strive to uphold these virtues, but we're all human. Humans have been known to kind of mess things up with other humans from time to time. So when that happens, we have the Right Relations team, and they're tasked with reminding us of our covenantal agreements. They're not the covenant police, trying to dole out punishments for indiscretions. They're not trying to find out who's right and who's wrong. Instead, they are the healers, with the goal of bringing everyone back into right relationship. So there's many ways that the Right Relations team serves our community. First and foremost, they talk about the covenant, keep it top of mind. Second, these are the folks that we count on to model the behaviors that our covenant promotes. And when a conflict arises, they get involved and restore the community, repair any relationships that are damaged. These are called restorative practices, and we're going to have more services brought to you by the Right Relations team in the coming months, so I think you're going to be hearing more on the topic of restorative practices in future worship services. But here's a quote from the training that I pulled out that I really like, that I'd like to share. We need to remember that we can be loved even when we make mistakes. We can be loved back into relationship. The great thing about our covenant is that it was created by the congregation. Maybe not the same exact people that are sitting in this room today, but they were UUs who care about this congregation just like you and I do today. So our existing covenant, written in 2007, has brought our congregation through to today. We continue to follow its advice. But as time changes and culture changes, so too must our living and breathing covenant. We've been asked to work together to refresh and renew our covenant so that it fits us well and serves us well into the future. So that'll be something to look forward to. I look forward to working on it, and I hope that each one of you will participate as well.
And I've got a poem. It was actually part in the training that's really spoke to me, and I have a short reflection as well that I'm going to read. But first, the poem. It's Gentleness in Living by Richard S. Gilbert. Be gentle with one another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hurt, hope and hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within. Human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. A little bit about covenant and right relations from my viewpoint. Our covenant at church is about how we relate to one another, which is fairly obvious. Sometimes there are misunderstandings, though, or we forget to treat each other like the valued human beings we are. There can be so many reasons why we don't take best care of each other. Often we aren't very good at taking care of ourselves, so sometimes things spill over into how we deal with each other. Our covenant and right relations team both are to support each other in community, to emphasize our shared values, even though we often have different ideas about what faith means to us. All this is a structure to help us all hold each other in caring, community, understanding, empathy, and love. All of us, unless we are very lucky or very young, know that even love is not always perfect and healthy. Our covenant reiterates our shared values to help keep us together and supporting each other in a healthy, loving way.
I'm very grateful to the Right Relations team for all of the work that they do to help us in this process. So if you would, because they've spent a lot of time on this, give them a big round of applause. Our relationships are ever evolving and ever in process. And that explains why faith is a living thing too. Faith is always in process. Covenant is always in process. Unitarian Universalism is not static. It's an ever-evolving process of unfolding. My meditation today was inspired by the part of our training on process theology and covenant, as presented by Reverend Dr. Jennifer Kwong and Reverend Renee Rachowski. I love the way they wove together process theology and covenant in the training. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. So close your eyes. Take some deep breaths to center yourself. And let's imagine together. Imagine this sanctuary as a container. What do we hold in this container? People, objects, symbols. What is the purpose of this container that holds us? The people, the chalice, the chairs, the pulpit, the piano, the hymnals. Why do we come to this container each week? Process theology informs us that we come here to this sanctuary, this container, to engage in the creative process. We are many in this room, many people and many objects of our faith to interact with. When we interact, we engage in creative interchange, or as Alfred North Whitehead said, the many become one and is increased by one. We interact, we become one, and we increase ourselves by what we create. That creation has an effect on the world. Think of a time in this sanctuary when everything just came together. Everybody was leaning into what was going on. Imagine that time in your mind. What was the energy like? What was being created? This container is more than just a building. We bring certain qualities and shared values to it. In that moment, you were just thinking about, what did we bring to this container so that we could create that good energy? Was there trust? Was there openness? Was there sharing? What about forbearance? Forbearance, as they explained it in the training, means being responsible for our own emotional baggage. How responsible are you for your own emotional baggage? Are you easily angered? Do you forget to speak with care and compassion? Do you coerce or shame, interrupt, power over, manipulate, or hurt others? Or maybe you are afraid to speak, not offering good and helpful information or perspective. In what ways might you tend to break trust? Remember, not one of us is perfect. But we do need to bring this into our awareness if we are to imbue this container, this sanctuary, with the values that we hold at the center of our faith. So just hold that in your thoughts for a moment. Think of all the loving ways in which you behave towards others, but find that place where you need to grow so that you can become more connected, thus intensifying our creativity. When we come together in this container, we are talking and listening to one another to discern what the best way to live is, how to best create the loving community we want, and we are experiencing creative interchange. But does it happen serendipitously when we all just happen to be in a good mood? Or does it happen intentionally because it is our practice? This is where covenant comes into our spiritual play and to the way we interact with one another in this container, our sanctuary. In process theology, we are a self in community. That is, not one of us can exist outside of the relationships we have forged with others. Thus, our goal should be to build up the common good, the beloved community. Imagine what the beloved community looks like. What kind of people do you see? How about objects, symbols, and other living things? Is the beloved community diverse? Is it beautiful? Process theology says that we are lured by an intense beauty, that we are invited into beloved community because it is diverse and complex and beautiful. But we are responsible for creating that beauty. And so in this sanctuary, we create a container with our living covenants, one in which we can create the world we dream about. Take a few last breaths. And when you're ready, open your eyes if you haven't already. And let us sing hymn number 18, entitled, What Wondrous Love. These closing words were written by the Reverend Victoria Safford. A covenant is not a contract. It is not made and signed and sealed once and for all, sent to the attorneys for safekeeping or guarded under glass in a museum. A covenant is not a static artifact, and it is not a sworn oath. Whereas. Therefore, I will do this or I'll die, so help me God. A covenant is a living, breathing aspiration made new every day. It can't be enforced by consequences, but it may be reinforced by forgiveness and by grace when we stumble, when we forget, when we mess up. When we welcome babies in our church, when we welcome new members into the community, when we celebrate the love of beaming couples, when we ordain new ministers, we speak not in the binding language of contract, but in the life-sustaining fluency of covenant, from the verb covenir, to travel together. We will walk together with you, child. We will walk together with you, friend. We will walk together with each other toward the lives we mean to lead, toward the world we mean to have a hand in shaping, the world of compassion, equity, freedom, joy, and gratitude. Covenant is the work of intimate justice. Petra, would you please extinguish our chalice as we recite our chalice extinguishing words? We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry